What can I do for you, sir?
I'm investigating the murder of Melvin Tuttle.
I don't understand.
Mr. Henry Swarthmore is a member of this club, is he not?
Yes?
I understand he was here yesterday. Did he meet with anyone?
I never pry into my customers' private affairs.
Was Tuttle a member?
Yes. I'm afraid I have no more time for your questions. I'm a very busy man. Good day.
Now, you should have come to old Jack Jensen in the first place. Swarthmore met Mr. Livingston here yesterday morning.
Cedric Livingston, the builder?
That's him. He owns the place. He used to be the first mate on the Glenda sailing the China trade. I was shipmate with him. Back in '58, the captain met with an unfortunate accident, or so the story said. Mr. Livingston brought the Glenda through, and the owners gave him a fat reward and a captain's cut to boot. That's when he quits the sailor's life. Anyways, yesterday morning, Mr. Rake clears out Mr. Tuttle's locker and brought the stuff to his office. Mr. Swarthmore and Mr. Livingston was there waiting for a look-see.
So Swarthmore and Livingston are friends?
Thick as thieves.
What were they looking for?
Don't know. Didn't find it, though. Swarthmore was in a dither.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen.
Thanks is lovely. A few bobs better.
Mr. Tuttle was a very good customer. He bought dozens of gold-plated lockets, each time varying the inscription.
It's a small wonder how a man keeps that many women straight. What of the diamond locket he purchased?
He bought that last week. That one was solid gold, not plate. I believe he was finally getting serious about someone.
Oh, how lovely for him. And too late.
My good Dr. Watson, what brings you here today?
Murder, I'm afraid. Melvin Tuttle of the firm Sloane, Swarthmore and Cartwright. And we understand they handle much of the museum's property holdings.
Yes, we've given Henry Swarthmore complete control of our investment trust, which has grown under his stewardship. We are so very blessed because he's a most capable man.
Mrs. Cartwright? Mrs. Cartwright?
I'm sorry. I've had such a difficult time these past days. Tuesday I came home to discover this.
I received a note at the office. I know everything. I did not know I could have been so blind. If you love him, I will not stand in your way. Whitney. Oh, my.
And my husband was gone. I have not seen him since. He must have found out about Mr. Tuttle and me. It's ironic, but Mr. Tuttle broke off the affair 2.5 months ago when he told me he was in love with another woman. I tried to patch things up, but Melvin wouldn't hear of it. Do you think me dreadful to have done such a thing, Dr. Watson?
Why, no, I suppose.
My husband worked morning, noon, and night. I needed to be loved.
Yes, so, who do you suppose found it necessary to tell your husband about the affair?
I can't imagine, and why they would wait until after it was over to expose it leaves me baffled.
Have you any idea where I might find your husband?
I wish I did. I sent our butler to inquire at the Criterion Club, but I don't know for certain. If you do find him, Dr. Watson, promise me something.
Anything, Mrs. Cartwright, within reason.
Please, please tell him that I love him, and I swear I'll make it up to him.
Mr. Cartwright has been with us since yesterday, remaining in his room the entire time and consuming not much more than the decanters of whiskey we have sent to his room. I'd be careful going in to see him if I were you.
Mr. Cartwright, I've come to ask you some questions about the murder of Melvin Tuttle.
What did you say? The murder of Melvin Tuttle?
Yes. Can you tell me why you left the firm's offices so suddenly on Tuesday?
I received a note. It was very distressing. Everything she needs is Mrs. C. Furs and jewels and ever empty. While the husband works, the wife will play, and thus runs the world away. I was completely blind to it, of course. All the hints I'd seen but did not recognize became clear. I was so wrapped up in my work. I went home to speak with my wife, but she was out. The longer I waited, the less courage I had to face her. And I somehow ended up here. Does my wife know of Tuttle's death?
Yes. She said she loves you and will make it up to you.
Perhaps we can make it up to each other.
When Melvin Tuttle was promoted to junior partner and I was not, it was the final insult. He had only been there but 2 years. My work, I say quite immodestly, was superior. Clearly, my prospects with the firm were limited, so I resigned.
Did you dislike Mr. Tuttle for only professional reasons?
No, it was much more personal. I hold Miss Spring in high regard, and it pained me to see her so taken in by his glibness.
Perhaps you should have tried to woo her with your beautiful roses.
I tried that, sir, to no avail.
Swarthmore handles all of my property transactions. He lays the paper in front of me and I sign them. That's the extent of the labor I require of myself nowadays.
It does sound like great work if one can get it.
I'm afraid I have no business sense at all. Mr. Swarthmore takes care of everything for me. I feel blessed.
Mr. Heathcliff, I understand that Sloane, Swarthmore and Cartwright has been preparing contracts for your textile business.
What's going on here? Those contracts were to be kept highly confidential.
And they shall continue to be, sir. I'm only interested in how the firm handled the negotiating and execution.
Well, suppose there's no harm in that. Some 8 months ago, Sir Sidney Sloane undertook the negotiations. Mr. Cartwright drew up the contracts. This whole thing surrounds a top-secret textile merger, which is more than I should mention.
My lips are buttoned.
I would appreciate that, Dr. Watson. I dealt exclusively with Mr. Cartwright throughout the contract stage. Mr. Swarthmore stepped in at the final hour, which I did find a bit surprising. His alterations, however, had no material effect on the final documents. That contract, as I said, is highly confidential. I would appreciate it if you did not read it.
I have no intention of reading it, sir. But I would like to keep the envelope, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Mr. Holmes adores scented stationery.
Melvin Tuttle? He certainly was one with the ladies. Brought in a whole parade of lovelies. Not all at the same time, mind you. In fact, Mr. Tuttle used this place so often, he kept a chamber here.
My word. When did you last see him?
Been 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know why, but he gave up his room.
Are you acquainted with Mr. Melvin Tuttle?
Tuttle. No.
Oh, isn't he Swarthmore's associate? Yes, I suppose I may have met him once.
I assume you are a friend of Mr. Swarthmore's?
Hardly. I've done a bit of business with the firm. We've had several formal meetings and 2 or 3 business lunches. That's about the extent of it.
Here it is. Murray's Compendium of My Favorite Poisons.
Bewitching title, read on.
It says, Chinaberry, Melia azadirach, is a tree of warm, temperate regions producing panicles of fragrant purple flowers, followed by pale yellow berry-like drupes about half an inch across. Sounds lovely, doesn't it?
Not half as lovely as solving this case, Watson.
Of course. The fleshy pulp of the fruit contains a paralyzing nerve poison. When distilled into its crystalline pure state and ingested, only 0.05 grams is enough to prove fatal to the most hearty of men. Heart action stops immediately and permanently. No known antidote exists. The presence of the poison can be detected by its faint smell reminiscent of lilac.
Old H.R. certainly knows his poisons.
Here it is, Murray's Compendium of My Favorite Poisons. Mr. Swarthmore, Mr. Mainhart.
Swarthmore, you say?
Yes, Swarthmore.
Well, he delivers papers and I sign them. Terribly kind of him, for I rarely get out much, you see.
Yes, I can see.
Can't say if the pen is mightier than the sword, but it most definitely is mightier than the scalpel. What can I do for you, Dr. Watson?
I would like to know what you and your scalpel discovered during the autopsy of Melvin Tuttle.
Now, let's see. Died of heart and respiratory failure, no disease present. I tested for many common poisons and could find no foreign substances. Of course, I know you realize many poisons are virtually undetectable unless you know what you're looking for.
Of course.
Say, Watson, I was going to run off and catch the cricket match. Care to join me?
Tempting, Sir Jasper, very tempting.
Can't say if the pen is mightier than the sword, but it most definitely is. Can't say if the pen is mightier than the sword, but it most definitely is mightier than the scalpel.